discussion. I do want to mention that our national president will be one of the 3 recipients tonight for the National Civil Rights Museum free. I mentioned earlier what the panel will be focusing on. So President Morial is going to be on the panel. Tennessee Minority Leader, Representative Carol Campbell, please come up. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, and Memphis Mayor Carl Young. I'm going to give you a little information about, sometimes we see our leaders in the news and stuff. Sometimes we really don't know a lot about it. So anyway, my sister friend, Leagu is a Memphis native who has served in the 87th district since 2008. She achieved historical significance as Tennessee's first African-American woman to lead the caucus in the state General Assembly in Tennessee. Congratulations. Thank you. First woman, black woman. No, were you the first woman or the first black woman? All right. Okay. Because sometimes she was the first woman. Oh yeah. Okay. And then she had to fight some of her own people for that. But anyway, that's another story. As the president said, we crab in the barrel sometimes. We're going to work on it because right now we can't afford to be fighting each other because we're in 47 coming at all of us. So I'm going, I know it's important right there about Representative Campbell. I'm going to the Shelby County Mayor. In August 2018, Mayor Harris was elected as the 6th mayor of Shelby County. Prior to his election, he served in the Tennessee Senate and on the Memphis City Council.
Yes, he did.
3 areas of leadership around him. Okay, throughout his political career, he has been an unwavering voice for neighborhoods, public safety, environmental protection, and for the strong middle class. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mayor Harris. You probably don't even know this about me. But anyway, so when he was running for office the last time, I really just didn't keep up with him. And, I saw him when he first ran for chairman of the Democratic Party. So when he was running last time, some people I listened to him campaign, and I heard some of the things that he did for our community that I really didn't know about. Because some people, they're so quick to talk about elected officials, they ain't doing this, they ain't doing it. But people don't keep up with what people actually doing. I don't know a mayor who been in office, whether you like them or not, they done something positive in our community. You just might not keep up with them, but they done something. So I followed and I learned some of the things that he had done in our community, and I was very impressed. But what I was most impressed about was Mayor Harris. Somebody told me that even if people give you campaign contributions, you still might not return their phone call. They don't know that. They don't know that. So that impressed me a lot. They don't owe him because they gave him a campaign contribution. So I was impressed with that, man. Anyway, and I appreciate that about you too. So now we'll move on to Memphis Mayor Carl Young, the son and the grandson of everybody. He's the 65th, because he's just in his 40s. Well, you're in your 40s too, right? You're not 50 yet, right? Oh, okay. Okay. So anyway, Mayor Young is the 65th and current mayor of Memphis. He's been in office for 1 year and 9 months, y'all. He came in office January 1, 2024. And so, Mayor Young, you got 2 more years. 2 more years. You got some stomping to do. But we push you for the next 2 years, all right? You're going to be good. You don't have, a lot of stuff happened to you that you had absolutely no control over. People don't care, but some people do care. Okay, so he earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Tennessee, a Master of Science in Urban and Regional Planning, and a Master of Business Administration from the University of Memphis. He has spent the last decade improving the quality of life in Memphis by advancing housing security and fostering healthy neighborhoods where families can thrive. As a president of the Downtown Memphis Commission and Director of Housing and Community Development, development for the city of Memphis, Mayor Young applied a holistic approach to unifying the city through public and private partnerships and targeted investments in our future. So he is a person who cares about our community. He's done a lot of work in our community. But anyway, I'm going to move on to our questions, and the focus is going to be on democracy, civil rights, and progress under attack. So the first question is, across the nation, we've seen efforts to limit to the ballot box. Just as Mayor Morial stated earlier, all these things coming up to influence our voting or not voting, but some of us, we can control our not voting. So how these national attacks on voting rights affecting African Americans here in Memphis and across Tennessee. So Representative Camper, we'll start with you. So how are these attacks on voting affecting African Americans?
Thank you, Gale, for the question, and thank you all for being here. What I've seen in the community and talking with people about how they're feeling with respect to what's going on, I'm hearing people say, why should I defend democracy when I am not a full participant in it based on what people are trying to do? Why, if my people have fought to get us to a place in this country and there are those trying to turn the tides and push us back, why am I trying to defend that? Why am I trying to participate in a democracy that really don't seem to allow me to benefit fully from that democracy? So people are really feeling hurt, number one. They're feeling like I should just disengage and see what happens. As he mentioned earlier, people are pulling back. So we're going to have to encourage people and show people why it's important for them to fight for democracy.
So you're saying we, who is we, who have to show these people that? Who is the we?
The we is people like myself. The we is people in this room. The we is everywhere we go in life, whoever in our sphere that we can reach out to and touch, explain to them the benefits of fighting for democracy and why it's important to continue to fight for democracy. And don't get weary, as he mentioned earlier, in your well-doing. Because just think of our ancestors who did not fully get to participate in what we're doing right now. They never gave up. They kept fighting, even though they knew that they could not fully benefit from it themselves. They knew that their children would. So we have to make sure that these rights are protected for our children, their children, and all of the people coming after us. So we are the we.
Okay. Mayor Harris.
Well, I'll just keep on going along that thing with respect to the we, and I know what everyone wants to hear, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that and get that out of the way, and then I'm gonna say what you don't want to hear. So the part of the we that everybody wants to hear is the politicians, right? The politicians are gonna get out there and get everybody energized and convince everybody to turn out to vote, and I believe that, and certainly as a political official, I've got some work to do, and I think there are two areas where we could work a little bit harder to make sure that folks turn out to vote, and that's with social media. No matter what we think, the landscape has changed, and now a lot of people get their information from social media, and so now we've just got to start engaging there, and not enough of us are doing that, and are not adept at doing that, but that is just the reality, and it's only going to expand over time. At the same time, we've got to make sure that we're addressing issues that matter to people, that do get them energized. And so those are, that's changing too. I mean, affordable housing is now a big issue. It might not be an issue for me and for some of you all who already have a home, but if you don't and you're just starting out, then affordability and housing become big issues. Now I'm going to talk about the part that y'all don't want to hear, and that is the responsibility on the voters to energize themselves. This country, this country is owned by every one of us, right? And we all have a responsibility, a civic responsibility, to get out of our house, to register ourselves to vote, to be informed on the issues, and to vote. I mean, that's our right in this country, and we bear some responsibility for that. Whether or not our politicians are rock star, jumping around, or not, right? That doesn't matter. We still have that same civic responsibility. So some of that comes to education, to understand why it's important in the history. And so we've got to do a better job of passing those lessons of civic responsibility as part of our education. Thanks. That's it.
Okay. President Morial. Okay.
Well, testing. Yes, so I think a lot of the things that have been said, I think that self-responsibility, as Mayor previously said, is the most important thing. I can tell you when I was on the campaign trail just a couple of years ago, I would talk to people very, very often, and they would say things like, man, it don't matter who's in office. Everything is the same in my neighborhood. Things feel exactly like it felt from one administration to the next, so it doesn't matter. And so I think as public officials, it's important for us to be able to articulate the things that are happening so that people can understand what impact that vote has on their daily life. Because oftentimes there's a disconnect between the decisions that are being made and how it's received on the ground. As you mentioned, there were things about Mayor Harris during his first term that you didn't even know. As an informed voter, there are things that I do every day, and I just assume. So I'm talking to myself too. I just assume that people know the things that we're working on because I talk about it, I say it. But we have to understand that communication is constant. You have to use social media. You have to use ambassadors and influencers and other people to make sure that we're all equipped with the knowledge. Because the reality is, in our last election that I was in, I think we had about a 25% turnout rate.
25, 27, something
So
like that.
75% of the people that could have voted didn't. So when we talk about suppression, it's self-suppression. We're suppressing ourselves, and I think it's really, really important that as elected officials, we take that responsibility. And then just lastly, what Mayor Harris said, each and every one of you influence at least 20 to 25 people in your circle. That's a low number. If they know what you're going to do, if they know who you're voting for, that you're excited about making this vote, they're going to go out. And we got to make sure that we are passing that down to the next generation. Last thing they told me when I was on the campaign trail, you see young people just walk right past them because they don't vote. And we need to change that narrative. Yeah, exactly. But we need to change that narrative. So I think that's really important.
I want to, I was in Philadelphia in 2018, door knocking in, I think, Grace Ferry, Philly, Southwest Philly, knocking on doors in the community. And, when you door knock, you're going to get, 4 or 5 favorables, and then you might get cussed out. 4 good, and somebody might just cut you out. So we were in Philadelphia, we went into a woman, and she came to the door. And this was in the federal midterms. She said, "Don't you dare ask me to vote until you send somebody out there to pick up the garbage right down on the corner that I see, and I've been seeing for 6 months. Because I've been calling for 6 months." And I stepped away and I said, you're absolutely right the way you feel, but this is not the city elections. These are the federal elections. And I had a long talk with her, but to the issue that people raise, which is my neighborhood hasn't changed. I'll say this to the local electeds, right? I faced the same thing when I took office. But I decided that I was going to break the mold of the bureaucracy and do something different. So I hired 200 people, temporary employees, put them on 5 trucks, and all they did was go in the neighborhoods, clean up lots, pick up garbage, pick up tires. New Orleans has a lot of wooden homes. I took CBDG money and created a home painting program. I had my guy map out the condition of every street. I hired 100 street repair people to go out and do potholes. I went out and put together a capital program and improved all the playgrounds. what I was trying to do, and I knew that I had to visually change what people saw in their neighborhoods if they were going to have some confidence in me. And I had the civil service director say, well, you can't hire these temporary employees. That's not control the payroll and the checkbook.
Yeah.
And what they gonna do? Call me before the Civil Service Commission? I said, I'm gonna bring all the people who've been complaining to me.
Yeah.
I had a newspaper reporter because we had a shooting at a playground. It was about 4 months. I went to the playground. The basketball goal was broken. The swings were down. I said, I want this fixed right now. They said, oh man, Morial, we got this bid process. I said, give me a damn emergency order. Just write up an emergency. I'm gonna waive everything. The newspaper reporter said, well, you waive. I said, children died, man. Children died. My job is to respond to the community. You write whatever you want to write. I don't care, right? Because you caught up in a bureaucracy, and I'm trying to get some things done. So my thing with local elected, you got the power of the city, the county, the school districts, some of the housing agencies. We gotta push the bureaucracies out, because what you said is true. I don't see any change in our neighborhood. We can't promise everybody a job. We can't make magic out of a bad economy. But we have to use the powers that we have. We have to use the governmental institutions that we have control over to focus on things. I call it the sanitation posse. And these guys were out every single day, cleaning up lots, picking up trash, and then I created what I call the strike force. So once a month, the strike force was 400 city employees that went into a single neighborhood all at once. They did pothole repairs, they cut grass, they wrote violations of landlords, 400 of them. We won an award for that. Strike force, right? I said, all of y'all gonna go into one neighborhood on one day. And I had my chief administrative officer, he loved playing gentleman. So he was a gentleman. See, what we have to do is recognize that process is process. But sometimes you gotta break the process to get things done. And I urge you not to be afraid to be disruptive.
That's right.
In doing certain types of things. I'm not saying break the law, but you have to extend your power in order to do it. Like I hired, 200 temporary employees because you gotta go. Temp is an exception. I'm gonna hire, now y'all working through the civil service system. I need to do this right now. I talked to the mayor-elect of New Orleans. She said, I'm gonna do what you did. I'm gonna hire 150 people that don't do anything but fix potholes in it. So sometimes to address this problem, we gotta realize it is real. If you've been living there, and the garbage, and this, and that, you gotta kind of deal with it. The only last thing I'll say is, I've been in Memphis, when Mayor Harrington was elected. That the turnout was 70%.
Yeah.
See, we once in the South took this vote thing seriously. Because we had people right there in our families who never voted in their lives till they were 50 years old. And we heard the stories. So when I grew up, it was absolutely, if you didn't vote, you get put out. Now something has happened and we can't perhaps motivate people with that in the same fashion. But we still have to tell the stories. It is not acceptable. We had almost 50% turnout in the New Orleans elections that happened just this last week, which was the highest turnout in maybe 20 years. Right? That's a good thing. But 50 is not the 70 I had when I got elected, right? So we got some work to do. If we maximize, let me give you this final statistical example. The election of 2016, y'all remember that election? Clinton v. Trump. Black voters turned out 59%. The election of 2020, Biden v. Trump. Black voters turned out 64%. The election of 2024, Harris v. Trump. Black voters turned out 59%. Obama v. McCain. Black voters turned out 65%. 2012, Obama v. Romney. Black voters turned out 69%. You get the drift here? So if you know that Kamala Harris is losing Michigan by 40,000 votes, Pennsylvania by 50,000 votes, Georgia by 115,000 votes, then you know that our turnout could make a significant difference. If you got the turnout of Latinos up to 60 to 65% on a consistent basis. See, what is happening is we're leaving our power on the table. And they have figured out, those on the far right, that creating psychological confusion and creating a sense that black politicians don't deliver is a tool of suppression. See, suppression is not just changing the rules. Suppression is also running advertising campaigns and messaging campaigns that are designed to foster confusion, depression. It doesn't matter. It's like the brothers say, it don't matter. You picked that up because you've been sneaking watching Fox News. I said, I know what you've been doing. I had a debate with a brother and I said, you've been watching Fox. I said, because, bro, what you're telling me is right off Fox News. I saw it last night too. So I got to go sneak over there and see what they're talking about also. But I mean, that's the point. We have to confront the fact that they're using new tools. New tools. This is the most sophisticated level of politics. You know where this comes from? This comes right out of the Nazi Soviet Union playbook, right? I mean, they used psychological information campaigns in order to manipulate people. Not just vote for me because I'll do X, but telling people about why voting won't matter, why it doesn't count, why. And the Russians ran a very sophisticated campaign in 2016 solely through the internet. We got to learn what is happening because we have to tell communities what they're going to be faced with. You can say right now that next year, in 2016, there are going to be the same kind of campaigns. Same kind of campaigns on the internet saying, well, it doesn't really matter. Saying, oh, getting you distracted with issues. So I'm speaking in this room to a group of leaders. You have voice within organizations. Some of you have public platforms. We have to use these public platforms to begin now talking about 2026, educating our people, telling them why it is crucial to vote, educating them about candidates, educating them about issues. And so I hope we can do that because 27%, I mean, Dr. King and the people back there, if they knew we were turning out 27%, well, I wonder what they think. Hey, we fought all these battles and you all are doing what? Sitting in your house on Instagram, right? Watching, listening to music and hanging out and chilling and saying it doesn't matter when you can walk right down there in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a half hour and go do something that's free, completely free. So I make this appeal because it really concerns me. When I look at these numbers, I'm horrified particularly at how it's changed in local elections, particularly in majority African American cities. St. Louis, 27% turnout. The last election, the lowest turnout they've had in 50 years, right? You just go down the line. Chicago, right? Chicago used to have massive voter turnouts, right? And now it's sunk down to in the 30s or some level far below. We gotta seize our power. Seize our power.
Thank you. And I kind of want to piggyback a little bit on what our panelists said about voting. So when we have an election, many times people in the media will call me and they will ask me, Gale, you know, why are people not voting? Why is it down? And I constantly tell them, and a lot of elected officials don't like to hear me say this, but it's the truth. People, unless they see the elected officials or those in office doing things that will directly impact their lives or their family lives or their community, they don't care. They see no difference whether they vote or not. They see no change. Until they see change, like President Morial mentioned when they went through the neighborhoods and the numbers went up. You can't just get in office, and we had a good number of elected officials here. We got people who are going to be running for office next year. You got to remember, you can't just promise to do something. When you're in office, you must do something. And he gave a lot of specific examples that could be done in our communities where people will feel a need to continue to elect people who are going to actually do things to impact their lives, their family lives, and their community. It is very important. It's very simple. So I don't know, Mayor Morial, because she was a mayor, but I don't know if the numbers continue to drop because the black leadership or the black elected officials are not doing what their voters want them to do in their community.
There's another factor that we must also consider. Yeah. And that is that the investment in the turnout apparatus coming from national political forces is insufficient. You see these billion-dollar campaigns, and you see people just pouring money into television commercials to such an extent where you get a headache from watching them, as opposed to investing money into door knocking, canvassing, community meetings, rallies in the neighborhood, engagement with voters. We also, behind the scenes, have had a bit of a philosophical and tactical war about what you do in a campaign to engage voters. You know, one of the things that President Obama did in 2008, which was the most unique and masterful presidential campaign in modern American history, is he went into all these neighborhoods and created these mini campaign offices. He recruited all these folks to go work in those neighborhoods, and then they recruited volunteers. I think in 2008, they knocked on my door 5 times. I told the lady, go knock on the neighbor's door, because you got the votes in this house. He did something, and then he used technology in a way. Now, the big media people said it was all about technology. No, it was about the ground game. Y'all remember that ground game?
Yes.
It was highly successful, and that ground game was super organized. You know, they would hire a director. They were responsible for a neighborhood. They would assign, every week they had assignments. They recruited volunteers. They registered people to vote. They went out and they talked to voters. Old time, face-to-face talking to voters. And it really worked. And you see the right adopting the same type of policies, right? The same type of political policies. And so it is a mistake to think that you can win a campaign on television or with media only. You gotta have it, but only as opposed to really engaging. And so one of the things in national elections is the investment level today is not what it was in the past.
That's right.
Right? And we got to raise that question in the run-up to 2026. Look, I know with the resources, and the money, and I told someone, they said, well, go. I said, I can't do nothing without some balloons. I need some T-shirts. I need to, if I have volunteers working, at least, Mayor, I need to feed them some gumbo, and some red beans. I'm in New Orleans, right? I gotta have gumbo and red beans, right? I said, give me some gumbo, give me some red beans, give me some T-shirts, give me some balloons, and give me a DJ, and I can get to work, right? I can get to work. I can recruit people. I can get them organized. Now, a little bit later, you gotta send some of that good money over here. But I can start. I can start with that.
Oh, okay, so I want to move on to this right here. What role should business leaders and civic institutions play in defending progress when political leaders retreat from it? Representative Cameron.
So what? Thank you. Just this week.
Go ahead.
Just this week, I held Minority Enterprise Development Week to talk to businesses that are being affected by some of the policies that we actually, passed in this state. And my message to them, and what I've learned from some of them, is regardless of what you call it, you still can do the same things to get access to people.
I think everything that they said was spot on. I would just add one of the things that Leader Camper said is how business leaders have an opportunity to be a neutral ground in this hyper-partisan world that we're living in right now. With all of the partisanship, our business leaders have the opportunity to be neutral and talk about the things that matter. I just think about Memphis. One of the issues that we've had a lot of conversation around is transportation. We need business leaders to step up because they need their employees to be able to get to work. We need our residents in our communities to have access to healthy foods, and all of these things happen because of strong transportation. And so that's just one issue where business leaders, if they advocate, can bring the resources that we need for our respective communities. And I think you can apply that to any issue that we're dealing with in our city. And I think that is the important thing for business leaders to do, is be those advocates that are really speaking on behalf of the people in our communities that need that support.
So, Mayor, I keep calling you Mayor because you did such a good job with how much you did with the Mayor. President Morial, you have a lot of business folks and corporate people on your board. How do you really get them to stay committed to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion?
You got to push on them. You got to push on them quietly. And you have to, I've had a lot of individual conversations. And so it is a campaign of persuasion. It's a campaign of encouragement. It's a campaign and this is what we have to do. We have to not be afraid. See, the worst thing you can do is just not shh, don't talk. You have to talk about it, right? Let's just talk about it. Because you tell me where you are. Well, I've got to make some changes. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. So tell me what you're going to do. I need to get past payments, right? And it also gives me an opportunity inside a lot of companies. I'm going to be very candid. Some of them get bad legal advice. They get bad legal advice. They get advice from lawyers, from corporate lawyers who understand civil rights. And they get advice that is more about conflict avoidance than what is right and what is legal. That a lot of corporate lawyers on the inside are more risk managers than they are. And then sometimes you see them with political advisors who have limited exposure. Like I tell corporate guys, I say, you don't want political advisors whose only experience is working on Capitol Hill. Because they're going to just think in Capitol Hill terms. But everything's partisan, right? And who you're going to please and who you're not going to please. So you have to think about it in terms of local communities and in terms of impact on your customers. You know, one company that has been buffeted by all of this, has been hurt by this, I recommended to them at the very beginning, before they walked away, I won't call their name, I recommended to them that they sit tight and wait. He said, let the wind blow a little bit. You don't have to do anything now. The ones that have felt the most pressure are those that have had mergers and acquisitions teams that needed governmental approval. Now, this is interesting, that the government is using its regulatory power and its funding power to force people to change, not change their practices, which is just another form of regulation. And I've said to many of them, you got to be careful doing this, because if the presidency changes, I'm going to be the loudest voice on the other side, saying don't approve that deal unless Company A agrees to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I said you got to remember, you're setting a precedent in terms of how you do business. If you're allowing the government to say, I'll approve your deal only if you follow this list of do's and don'ts I just gave you. That are not written into the law, just something that the executive branch is inventing. So that a lot of this, so I think conversations within business organizations and with business leaders individually, you know, mayor, urban league leaders, others, we cannot be afraid to have the conversation. I'm a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. We organize the members of our class to have a meeting with the president of the university. We have agency, we have standing as alumni, and we have a lot of prominent alumni in my class, black alumni, college presidents, elected officials, senior corporate executives. We might have sat down with the president, 10 of us, in his office. I said, we got to get out of this habit of talking to ourselves. We got to get out of this habit of grumbling to ourselves. We'll sit down with people who are our allies and sit down and say, let me tell you why this is important to us. Let us give you our point of view. Because we knew that the big donors were leaning on the president, and he acknowledged that. The provost told us, I'm so glad you all are in here, because you don't know how many of these big donors come in here pushing us to do things. So we have to use our agency, right? Your community leaders, you have standing to talk to Memphis's corporate leaders. It's bankers, it's industrial leaders, and say, let us tell you why being committed to equal opportunity and diversity is important to us. You do what you have to do, but we are never going to let it be said that we never had a conversation and that you never knew where we stood. We have to use our agency with respect to this. I'm going to go to the last point I want everybody to understand. Go back to 1965. 1965. So what was America in 1965? 100% of the leaders of Fortune 500 companies were all white guys. 100% of the members of the Senate were white guys. Every university, every hospital was run by white guys. Every single major national nonprofit organization, except those that were focused on civil rights, were run by white guys. No women, no blacks, no Latinos, no Asians. Every school board superintendent was a white guy. Every member of every school board, every mayor of every city in America was a white guy. That was 1965. Because of civil rights and diversity, there are now almost 50 of 500 corporate CEOs that are with me. There are 8, not enough, that are black. There may be 20 to 25 that are either Asian or Latino. Right now in the United States Senate, there are 4 or 5, I can't even count. And they were, in 1965, there had been none since Reconstruction. See, America and American democracy is better because of civil rights. Not just for us, but for the overall picture of America, right? And that is what we need people to understand. The America of the past was an America that was very exclusionary. It was America that women, you know, a woman in a boardroom, a woman in the Congress, a woman in the Senate, a woman running for president, a woman running for a company was an unheard of thing and considered to be absolutely not even foreseeable. America has changed. We don't want America to go back to that. Those that say America was great in those days, I don't know who America was great for. Maybe for some, but not for all, which is why this moment is important. So we have to have conversations with our allies. And I think the important way to have it is to talk to people why this is important to us. Why is it important to me? Let me tell you about my personal journey. I've talked more about my own personal journey, integrating schools, getting chased home from school, getting called names, getting into physical altercations, you know, because of, you know, the attitudes that some people had in those times, right? You kind of block all of that. You tend to forget all of that. But do we want to go back to that? That's what's at stake.
So we're going to close out now. This is almost 2 o'clock. I did have a whole lot of questions, but we'll be here till tomorrow. I do think that we received a lot of very good, valuable information today from our national president and also